Could you kindly state your names? Could you state your names, please?
My name is Ousman Jammeh.
Where do you live? Mr. Jammeh, where do you live?
I live in Brikama.
What work do you do at the moment?
Sorry?
What work do you do at the moment?
At the moment, I'm a retiree.
You are a?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't get that. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I said I'm a retiree at the moment.
You're retired from
I'm
this
retired from
public service?
Public service, yes, ma'am.
Would you like to sit down? Please, thank you. Sit down, please.
Yeah.
You worked as Secretary General, Office of the President. You worked as Secretary General, Office of the President.
That's right, ma'am.
Which office did you retire from?
I retired from the public service once I was appointed a minister. So I decided to take early. At the time, I was not yet due for compulsory retirement.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on. I can't barely hear what you're saying.
I said I retired from the public service at the point when I was appointed as a state minister.
State minister?
Yeah.
In which ministry? Which ministry?
Oh, ministry of the first time I was appointed minister was the Minister of Petroleum, Energy and Mineral Resources.
Which ministry did you retire from?
I don't know that's the question actually, because
when you were retiring, which office were you holding?
As Office of the President, yes.
No, when you were retiring.
Yes.
From which office? Which office were you holding at the point of retirement?
I was then the Minister of Petroleum, Energy and Mineral Resources. I recognize that that is a political appointment, so I retired voluntarily from the civil service.
You had retired voluntarily from the civil service?
Yes.
And then you were appointed?
Yeah, no, at the time I was appointed minister, then that was the time when I retired from the civil service.
All right.
Yeah.
Which years did you hold office as Secretary General?
I held the office of Secretary General on 2 occasions. I think it's about close to 1 year.
Okay.
Well, it was a dual position. When I moved in there, I was the Commissioner of Petroleum at the same time, the Permanent Secretary. And then later on, appointed as Permanent Secretary 1 at the Office of the President. From May 2008 to June 2010, I served as minister in 3 different portfolios. And the first one was, as I said, the Minister of Petroleum, Energy and Mineral Resources. And then when petroleum and energy was separated.
When petroleum and energy were separated?
Separate ministries, yes. I became the Minister of Energy, and also I served as the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
So between December 2011 until what period did you serve as the Minister of Petroleum and Energy?
I cannot remember the dates actually.
But you're saying that between May 2008 until 2010, you served as Minister of Petroleum and Energy, and then when they were separated, you served as what?
As Minister of Energy.
Minister of Energy.
And then from there, I went to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Then Foreign Affairs.
Yeah.
And then you came back to the position of Secretary General in May 2010.
Yes. Yes.
From 2011, what happened? That's when you retired. 2011
in
from
December,
the civil service.
Of course, yes. In December 2011, I had a problem with the government, and I was. I believe I was really wrongly charged for a crime which I didn't, commit, and I was jailed for 3 years, but I didn't serve my full jail term. I served only 9 months in jail, and then eventually I was able to get a presidential pardon, and thereafter, few weeks after my presidential pardon, I was actually appointed, because I received the letter of appointment to serve as the Gambia's ambassador to South Africa. But due to circumstances, I decided to decline the offer.
So let me understand, your last position in government was in December 2011?
Yes, ma'am.
And at that time, you were Secretary General?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Of course, as Secretary General, various matters that are the subject matter of this investigation happened during your tenure. I would like us to, I'd like you to assist the Commission on, firstly, the issue of the Kanaji, in the mining sector, Kanaji, termination of the Kanaji license and the issuing of a license to Gamiko.
Yes.
You were the Secretary General when license was revoked.
I was the Secretary General when that license was terminated.
Now, what was the basis for the termination of? I know the records are showing that they were accused of certain things. Mm-hmm. Now, what we can't find is what initiated or instigated the whole termination of the whole license. What happened whilst you were there that led to
my recollection of what really happened was that the President was of the view that the Kanaji minerals were not paying enough in terms of the government revenues from the mining operations. And one of his concern was that these minerals that are mined in the Gambia were exported without actually doing further processing, which will add value to the product. So, but then on investigations.
Okay, we really, this matter went to arbitration. And what happened when they were terminated and so on is a moot point at the moment, when they were terminated, in terms of whether it was right or it was wrong. But what led to the government, or what was the basis for the President forming the opinion that Kanaji was not doing the right thing? We know he was not a geologist, at least from the records.
Yes,
we know also that your ministry or your office did not have any geologists. You relied entirely on the geology department. The records also showed that the director of geology actually advised against it. Now, what we would like to have is an insight. What led to the decision, or not the decision, but the opinion that was held by your office at the time that Kanaji was not doing the right thing?
Yeah, we tried frantically to change the narrative, but unfortunately, I mean, I think you can attempt, but you cannot always succeed in trying to change the mindset of the president.
Was he influenced by anyone?
Yes, certainly later on he was influenced by someone.
No, was he influenced by anyone in deciding that Kanaji was not doing the right thing?
But before I come to the issue of what I know about the group that influenced him,
yes.
Eventually, I mean, when he said that, you know, I mean, and that's something that I agreed with him. If you export raw minerals, you don't get value for money. But then when the concern was raised, and of course the decision was taken to terminate the contract, I took up the responsibility of contacting the chief executive of the Kanaji Minerals and expressed to him, although he was not formally communicated to, what I expressed to him at a meeting that these were the concerns of the president, and I think they were genuine concerns. We believe that, you know, the Gambia can earn more if you do secondary processing in country before you export the minerals. And what his response was that yes, they are aware of that, but he felt that the government was in need of receiving payments. That's why, you know, they were actually doing that, but they were actually in the process of really putting in place the structures needed for this processing facility in the Gambia. So, and I think it was not just something that he was concocting, because he showed me evidence which date back to many months ago, showing that, you know, the efforts that they were doing to make sure that that particular processing plant is in the Gambia. I've seen invoices and I've seen certain materials that were already brought into the country. So when I took up this matter with the president, I said, well, he told me, well, if they are ready to do that, then they can come back. At the time, they had already been terminated. So I had the opportunity to meet with the chief executive in London, but during the appointment, you know, I asked the then Justice Minister to accompany me to have this meeting with Alan, that's the chief executive of Kanaji. We had a good meeting, and I assured him that, you know, I mean, once we are able to do this, the president has given us the mandate to meet with you and to convince you to come back. And he was very happy. Once we came back, he sent the manager that was sent away from here, he was sent the manager back to resume operations in the Gambia. Then, while, you know, they resumed their operations, something else happened. Another group came. I think, you know, they were introduced to the president by Mr. Bassi, and they claimed to be Australians, and I was in the meeting where they were making presentations to the president. And they were telling him that, you know, they are Australians, which I doubted very much. Maybe, I mean, they look like Lebanese to me. But they said, you know, they are apologizing on behalf of their countrymen who were exploiting the Gambia. If they're given the opportunity, they can do far better than what Kanaji was doing. You know, so at that point, you know, I mean, in fact, they were telling the president things that are not actually true. That what these Kanaji minerals were exporting, you know, is uranium, and the quantity that they were exporting, if you calculate it in money terms, is running into billions, I mean, without any basis. You know, but, you know, when the president is meeting with people, you as Secretary General, you cannot just interject like that, you know. Unless, I mean, but what he did was he turned to me and said, Secretary General, the deal is off. I felt like cold water poured on me, because I took the effort, you know, to mediate and make sure that these people came back, because I believe that, you know, I mean, they were actually doing genuine business in the Gambia, because this mining license, remember, was even signed by him himself. So, I mean, I believe that, you know, this is not a good sign for, you know, other investors if you are treating people, investors in that manner.
Okay, Mr. Jammeh. No, my question was, which was quite a direct question. The information you are giving us certainly gives us an insight into what happened. this group, there's something on record on them, I assume, which you will help us to discover in the records, many records that you have at the Office of the President. Is there anything on them? Any record on the group? You said they were introduced by Mr. Bazi.
Yeah, they were introduced to the President. I mean, I don't know much about the group. I was just called into a meeting where they were with the President, and then they...
Was Mr. Bazi present in that meeting?
That I cannot recollect, actually.
How do you know they were introduced by Mr. Bazi?
No, I think in the communications, I mean, later on I realized that these are... If my memory serves me right, I think Mr. Bazi himself was there. But if not, I mean, I know that, it was a group that was brought to the Office of the President by Mr. Bazi.
In your opinion, when the President revoked the license, was he influenced by anyone? Was he influenced when he revoked the license of Kanaji?
It was revoked a second time. But the second time, it was based on the influence that this other new group, brought to his attention that they can do a better job.
But we don't have any record, in fact, of an Australian group taking over. What we have is a record of one Gamiko. Do you know Gamiko? Were you there when Gamiko took over?
Well, I think eventually when these things happened, I left the office, so I didn't follow up what was happening there, because then I left to become a minister. So, I mean, but I know it is the same group, actually. It's the same group, Gamiko.
Sorry, you know...
It's the same group that made the presentation to the President, yes.
Was there any ministry or other senior officer involved during this process? Do you recollect, since you left?
Yeah, I think in the meeting, the then foreign minister was present. And
who was the foreign minister?
Crispin Gray Johnson.
Sorry?
Crispin Gray Johnson.
Crispin Gray Johnson.
Yeah, he was then the foreign minister.
Who else? Was there anybody else?
No. Basically, that's
what you recollect.
I can recall, actually, yeah.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to social security matters. Does the Commission want to ask any questions on this? No? Okay, thank you. Could you show the witness exhibit SC-17, please? Mr. Jammeh, you took over as Secretary General from Dr. Njoguba, is that correct?
No, I took over from Ibrahim Kamara.
Ibrahim Kamara, all right.
In May.
Ibrahim O. Kamara.
Ibrahim O. Kamara, yeah.
As you can see from that exhibit, that there is a letter of 17 March 2011, whereby the Secretary General at the time, Dr. Njogu Elba, wrote to the Social Security asking for a loan facility of 1 million, 500,000 cash and 500,000 banker's check in the name of government of Japan. Now, subsequently, the 500,000 evidence shows here, before the evidence adduced before this commission, shows that the 500,000 was either returned or reversed, and whichever. It was returned, I think. Okay. At least the money was never sent to Japan. The transaction was reversed. Now, the 500,000, again, the evidence shows that on the 6th of May 2011, a letter emanated from the Office of the President indicating that the 500,000 earmarked for donation to the government of Japan in the aftermath of the recent tsunami to the Trust Bank Limited should be paid to the Trust Bank Limited current account 120-120-99101 immediately. That account is an account in the name of the Gambia Animal Feed and Rice Project. I'll show you a document which was signed by you on the 6th October 2011 with regard to that project. Can you look at that document and tell us what you know about it? Can you show him this letter, because the version in that pack is not clear. I'll show you the Office of the President file, PRC 473, Volume 1. And folio, I direct you to folio 1 and 2, which were copied and given to you. Can you give him this file? It might be of help to you.
Sorry, Counsel, what is the number of that exhibit?
It's not been exhibited yet. When he identifies it, I'll
Not yet,
exhibit it.
okay.
Yes. It's the last 2 folios on those files. I just copied it for you.
Oh, okay.
But you can look at the file. Mr. Jammeh,
Yes.
why was, what is that project in the first place?
I know the genesis of that project. It was as a result of an official visit that the President paid to the Republic of Amin, to Qatar, that he was able to meet some investors who presented to them.
Speak up a little bit, maybe volume a little bit.
So I was saying it was as a result of the visit that the President made to Qatar, that he met this group.
The Kingdom of Qatar.
The Kingdom of Qatar. And he was introduced to this group who had a proposal to implement a rice mill in the Gambia. And this was to add value to the rice that is produced in the Gambia. And it's also going to be, as the proposal goes, a marketing outlet for Gambian rice growers. And they will process this rice into products that will add value to the rice and, of course, help the Gambian economy. The presentation was quite attractive. If you are somebody who is, biased in agriculture, who wants to make sure that
Who is biased? Sorry?
I said, if one is biased like myself, because that's my background,
Okay.
agriculture, that if you want to promote that, you also have to really deal with, processing of agricultural products, especially the products that we import en masse. And if you have an investor that can also create a market for the Gambian rice growers, I think that is something that one can buy into. Sorry. So on the basis of that, the President invited them to come, because this is a very interesting proposal. They can come in to invest in the Gambia, and of course they fulfill their obligations. They came in, and what surprised me was that they didn't want to go it alone. They wanted to have partners, and based on the discussions with the president, of course, he gave indications that some of the public enterprises that had participated in the project should also, invest in this particular venture.
Mr. Jammeh, that may be so. What I do not understand is why the government would be paying $500,000 directly to an account opened for this project. And it was a commercial bank account. I know when it was being paid, it looks like Ibrahim O. Kamara was the Secretary General. That's 6th May 2011. You said you came back. When did you come back? In May 2011, you were not Secretary General. You came back in September, you said. Okay. Your letter of 6 October 2011 says, I write in respect of the above account opened on May 8, 2011 with the sum of $500,000 at your bank. And that at the time the account was called the Gambia Animal Feed and Rice Project. And to request you to amend your records as follows. Account name Gambia Food and Feed Industries and stroke feed, GFFI. Signatories Saud Gandor, Canadian, passport number is given. Richard Gandor, Canadian, passport number is given. Alaji Osise, Gambian, passport number is given. The above names replace Ibrahim O. Kamara, former Secretary General and Head of the Civil Service, and Abdullahi Tibik Jara. So why was the Office of the President actually involved in opening accounts and putting the sum of $500,000 of National Provident Fund funds into this account?
Yeah, at the time I wrote this letter, I think the account was already open. And it was only based on directives that, at the time, Ibrahim Assise, when I wrote this letter, he was no longer the Secretary General.
Hello, sorry. Technician, can you help this?
Not
very clear from this end.
Okay. So at sorry. Okay. You can continue. Sorry about that. What prompted the writing of this letter was that, the Ibrahim O. Kamara was no longer the Secretary General, and he was out of the jurisdiction. I think he was then on an assignment in Brussels. But to go to the point, it was actually based on the directives of the President that these are the gentlemen who should really sign on, who should be signatories to this account. And the two Canadians and the Chief of Protocol at the time, that is Alaji Osise.
Well, the file does not contain any written directive. So how did he direct you?
Directives at the Office of the President, either written or verbal. He will call you and speak to you.
Let me get those documents and apply to have them admitted, and then we'll continue on what I would like you to. You still have not really been clear why the Office of the President. Why was the Office of the President actually the one that opened a private account with private people and put $500,000 in it, whatever the nature of the project? And then you took over, and I know you didn't open it. The records show it was Ibrahim O. Kamara's time. You took over and changed the signatories. But we would like to understand the thinking that would influence. What was the purpose? What was government going to... I think you understand what I'm saying. Why?
Yeah, on hindsight, I think it was inappropriate. But under the circumstances in which we were operating, I mean, if it is a project that is, shall I say, being pushed by the president himself, he actually directs you what to do, you know. And I mean, I had questioned that myself, but of course, why should we in fact participate in the project? You know, but the argument that these people gave was that, you know, their monies are coming and they just wanted to be part of this country, and then they want also certain entities, Gambian entities, to be working with them. So that was the justification. But,
all right.
but it is, in my own personal view, it's not appropriate actually. I would have preferred them to go solo, but the argument was that they needed to work with partners. And this money was raised from one of the, I think, the partners. And you know, when they were actually asked to be introduced to the signatories to this account, I was rather uncomfortable. But as I said, sometimes it's based on these directives that you cannot always change.
All right. Mr. Chairman, may I apply to have admitted 2 letters? A letter dated 6 May 2011, which forms part of Exhibit SC17, but the version in Exhibit SC17 is very dark, it's almost illegible. And another letter dated 6 October 2011, signed by the witness, changing the signatories to an account held at Trust Bank Gambia Limited in respect of the $500,000 taken from the National Provident Fund account.
If I may add on. Okay, sorry.
Letter dated 6 May 2011 from the Office of the President to the Managing Director, SSHFC, RE, Trust Bank dollar account opening, Gambia Animal Feed and Rice Project, and letter dated 6 October 2011 from Office of the President to MD Trust Bank, change of account name and signatories to account number 120120999101 with the name Gambia Animal Feed and Rice Project, admitted marked in bundle SC31.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Jammeh, you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to add on the Kanaji issue. When I came back as Secretary General the second time.
Sorry? Say that again.
I said when I came back to the Office of the President as Secretary General the last time, that is in 2011, I found out that, of course, the Kanaji had actually sued the Gambia government.
You found out that?
Kanaji had sued the Gambia government. And the Gambia government lawyers came up with a write-up and requested that, I be a party to be a witness to Solicitor General at the time, was Pahari Jammeh. I told him that my conscience cannot allow me to be a witness and even denying something that has actually happened. So I'm afraid whatever can happen, I will not be willing to be a witness on the side of the government to defend the government on this Kanaji issue, because what the statement is saying is complete opposite of what actually happened. Because I did have a meeting with them to convince them to come back, and then subsequently the whole issue was derailed. And in the meeting that I had with Alan Hopkins, I took along a witness, and the witness is...
Please speak into the mic. We cannot hear you clearly.
Okay, sorry.
Speak into the mic.
I said, at the time, the witness was the sitting Minister of Justice, and she witnessed the meeting, so I could not really append my signature or my name to a statement which is false.
Who was the Minister of Justice?
Martian, Firdaus.
Who was the minister at the time you were being asked to give that evidence?
I said the Martian Firdaus.
Was in the meeting in London?
In London, yes.
Was she still minister when you were being asked?
No, he had actually left at the time.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. We'll come back to this evidence, but since you went back to Kanaji, Mr. Bazi said here that he was contacted by the government to assist after the termination of the Kanaji mineral license. Did you contact your office contact Mr. Bazi to come and assist after the...
As I said, the truth is, it is Mr. Bazi.
Did you answer the question first? Did you contact...
No, I did not.
Did your office contact him to come and assist?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yes, you were going to explain.
I was going to explain that, it's clear to me that the group was actually introduced to the president by Mr. Bassi. So he cannot say that, well, maybe the president asked him directly, but I'm not aware of that, and it was not done administratively.
All right. Okay, thank you. We will, of course, the Commission will be investigating this Gambia food and feed industries, because not only did the Office of the President invest $500,000, but quite a number of public enterprises were directed to invest in this company. We'll come back to this, but and we will invite you back once we have the investigations in this matter proceeded with. What I would like you to answer is this. You were talking about Qatar, but the files indicate that the investors had Canadian passport numbers. And then they actually had a company called Conapro, Dena, BMS Sal, offshore, Beirut, Lebanon. What can you tell us about this?
Yes, I mean, at the time we were in Qatar, I mean, the impression we got was these are Qataris.
Were these very people, these
yes, they are the ones
bearing these Canadian passport numbers, were they in Qatar with you? Did you meet them in Qatar? Saud Gandor, Richard Gandor?
Yes, we met them in Qatar. But at the time we were given the impression that they were Qataris also, Qatari investors. It was later on we discovered that they are actually Lebanese and also with Canadian passports, you know.
They were Lebanese with Canadian passports?
Yes.
How were they introduced to Gambia government?
How they were?
How were they introduced? Who introduced them?
Oh, the ambassador at the time in Qatar, you know.
The Gambian ambassador?
The Gambian ambassador.
What was his name?
Ousman Jammeh.
Okay.
Ousman Jammeh. He was the ambassador at the time.
All right. As I said, we'll come back to this again. Mr. Chairman, do you have any questions? The Commissioner, before I move on to something else. All right, thank you. Again, with regard to Social Security, there is Exhibit SC18, which is a cash loan you requested. It's dated 3rd August 2011, and you said the office is urgently in need of a cash loan of $6,432,700 to address a very critical issue, and we would be grateful if you could assist. We want to assure you that this amount will be refunded before the end of this month. The above amount can be delivered to Mr. Amadou Samba of Gassem. Thank you for your understanding. And you attach an invoice. A statement of account, which indicates that it's a 50% advance payment to contract for a water tank, and an invoice from Braithwaite Engineers Limited, addressed to Kanilai Family Farms. The evidence in this, before this commission, is that this money was intended to purchase a tank. It would appear for Kanilai Farms. Mr. Jammeh, as Secretary General, the Commission would like you.
The head of state himself calls you directly and gives you directives to implement. And it is, under those circumstances, very, very difficult to refuse to honor his instructions. I mean, it could face consequences for that. But you know in your own good self that, you know, I mean, it's not appropriate.
Sorry, I didn't get that. You know?
You know yourself that, you know, such actions are not appropriate. But they are directives, so you cannot just tell the president, no, I cannot do it. But the issue here is that, you know...
What was the urgency? You said the office is urgently in need of a cash loan.
Yeah,
it wasn't the office that needed the cash loan.
Yeah, this as I said, you know, the instructions from the head of state himself.
He told you that to say
yes,
this?
Yes, of course, yes. I had to reflect that.
Are you saying he told you to say this? That
yes,
the office
and that the money will be paid at the end, before the end of the month. So I thought it was just a loan which will be honored, but you know, once you write the letter, of course, you get busy in other issues that the only thing I got was that the response from the Social Security to say that they have honored the request from the Office of the President, and they showed me evidence that they have drawn up a check in the name of Amadou Samba. So I presume that, you know, the letter and spirit of this letter was going to be adhered to, that before the end of the month, they will refund the money to Social Security. So, but thereafter, I have no knowledge of what transpired after writing this letter.
Mr. Jammeh, are you hinting that right from the outset you knew this thing was personal? It wasn't official? Is that what you are trying to confirm, that the request was actually not an official request on behalf of the government?
No, it was not there. That's what I was saying. It was not in order, actually.
Okay, that's clear. Is that why it's not on government letterhead?
Yes, because I believe that
it was deliberate. It was deliberately done on.
It was deliberately done. Yeah, because I believe that to
demonstrate your belief that it was personal and not official.
Yes, the Constitution indicates that. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but I know that we are supposed to honor our national flag and also national symbols. I mean, the letterhead also bears the coat of arms of the Gambia government, and I mean, based on that, I believe that it should not be used anyhow.
Mr. Jammeh, by this time, several loans had been taken from Social Security. That is by 2011. The Commission is basically, as a council assisting the Commission, struggling to understand the mindset that led the ex-president to believe that he could just take money from Social Security, knowing fully well that these are monies intended for the pension of Gambian workers. And really, and we're talking about the bulk of the workers in the country. Can you assist us? What was the mindset in that office that led the president to believe that he could do this?
Well, if the president is working with very close associates who have actually had some association with Social Security, I will imagine that they would have been briefing him or advising him as to the potential sources of financing for the projects that they are implementing together. And I recall, of course, the recipient of this check, Adam Amadou Samba, was at one point, the chairman of the board of directors of Social Security. So I believe that he must, he should have known the implications of this. But I believe perhaps the mindset of the president must have been influenced by people who know what is there in Social Security, that we can get this loan from, we can get this funding from Social Security. That's my personal
Did
view.
you at any time remonstrate with him, or if you cannot, which from what you described might be a difficult one, but did you draw to his attention the not only irregularity but the illegality of the government just giving directions or instructions to Social Security to spend pension funds?
I did that several times, but knowing the type of person he is, I mean, he will tell you off. You advise him and say, I'm not interested in what you think. And at one point, when you argue with him, he asks you, and he has done that to me, am I the president or are you the president? So, I mean, when you come to that level, you've got to where you have to stop. You advise him, he says, are you the president or am I the president? I mean, okay. If the president tells you that, it means you've got to your limit.
Okay, there is one more transaction concerning NAWEC that also happened during your time. The first NAWEC loan of $7,931,000. Do you remember that loan?
Yes, I did.
Now, this was in 2012. By then, the Office of the President had graduated from small amounts to huge amounts. But anyway, this one was intended for NAWEC, it seems. What was the... Well, tell us about this loan. Because you say, this is Exhibit SC24. a letter dated August 25, 2011, we commend your management and express our appreciation for providing a loan facility to NAWEC amounting to $7,931,000 in order to service its debt in full with ITFC. Your assistance to NAWEC is viewed as the right spirit of cooperation for our mutual pursuit towards national development. Now, it doesn't look like the loan was, yes, the loan was actually made during your time as Secretary General. What can you tell the Commission about this amount? A huge sum of money taken from Social Security to pay for NAWEC needs.
Yeah, at least this is one of the cases where I believe, it was not absolutely wrong for another public enterprise, if they have the means, to also assist another sister public enterprise, especially one that is key in the economic development of this country, that is NAWEC. So, but the issue here is that it was not like something that is going to be given to them for free. I could recall my letter also indicated that, modalities should be worked out between the two parties, that is Social Security and the NAWEC, and also with finance on the modalities of paying back this money back to Social Security.
But it doesn't look like your office took the responsibility of actually ensuring that there was a payment plan at that time and that this money was actually put back.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure, but I believe that the letter was also copied to the Minister of Finance. I don't have a copy of that letter here, I can see it. But I would have...
This particular letter that you signed is not copied.
Ah, okay. Maybe I was thinking of another one. Okay. I think, yes, what I could recall was a similar letter to them relating to NAWEC also, where I clearly, I cannot see that one here, indicated that, the repayment plan should be worked out between the parties with the support of, with the assistance of the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Jammeh, I'm sure you have heard by now that from that loan, directives were given for NAWEC to be lent money from the National Provident Fund to the tune of, up to the tune of $23 million. So there's a major hole in the National Provident Fund which cannot be filled or has not been filled, and there is no indication as at now. This commission is looking at, some of these processes and procedures and lapses or whatever irregularities that led to the bankruptcy of a key organization in the country. And I ask you as Secretary General, whether as at that time, as you said your view is that there is nothing wrong, but there is a process, there is a mechanism, there is a right way of doing it. Why wasn't such a mechanism put in place to make sure that proper process was followed and that, in fact, NAWEC had the ability to give back them funds to Social Security?
I think it's also the responsibility of the management of Social Security, if they are not in a position to honor certain requests, for them to clearly come out and state that they don't have the funds. But if they give the impression that the funds are there, And it's also for the request that is, I expect that, you know, I mean, if I were a manager of social security, I know that, you know, this is going to really, any request that is going to seriously affect, you know, the core operations of my organization, I'll have to really bring it to the attention of the Office of the President. You can write to the Secretary General and explain. And then the Secretary General will have the basis to address the matter to the President for him to also to understand. But if you give the impression that you have the money there, well, the request will still come, especially if it is to really be spent in a sector which is quite key to our national development.
Sorry, we shall rise for 15 minutes.
Thank you.